The volcanic ash falls like black snow, and the air tastes like sulfur and blood. A young Marine from Dayton, Ohio sprints 200 yards through machine gun fire carrying a weapon that shouldn't exist, built from scrap metal and desperation in a workshop half a world away. He's already been shot at 300 times this morning. He's going back for more ammunition. Behind him, 20 men are still alive because of what he did in the last hour. Ahead of him, Japanese gunners are repositioning, waiting for him to make his next run. In his hands, a homemade machine gun cycles rounds so fast the barrel glows red after 15 seconds. This is February 19th, 1945. This is the first morning of Iwo Jima. And before the sun sets over the Pacific, one man with an improvised weapon will change the mathematics of an entire beach landing. The question isn't whether he'll survive. The question is how many men will live because he didn't care if he did. The island of Iwo Jima rises from the Pacific Ocean like a pork chop made of volcanic rock, 8 square miles of black sand and gray stone positioned almost exactly halfway between American bomber bases in the Mariana Islands and the home islands of Japan. It is February 1945, and the United States needs this island the way a drowning man needs air. Every B-29 Superfortress flying missions over Tokyo travels 1,500 miles each way without fighter escort, without emergency landing strips, without any hope of survival if the engines fail or the flak hits true. Iwo Jima has 3 airfields. Iwo Jima has early warning radar stations that give the Japanese mainland precious minutes to scramble interceptors before American bombers arrive. Iwo Jima is a knife pointed at the throat of the American bombing campaign, and it must be taken. The Japanese understand this mathematics perfectly. They have transformed the island into something beyond a fortress, beyond a conventional defensive position. Lieutenant General Tadamaki Kurabayashi, commanding the island's defense, has spent months creating an underground nightmare. 11 miles of tunnels connect 1,500 cave positions, bunkers, and pillboxes. Artillery pieces disappear into hillsides on rail systems after firing. Machine gun positions have interlocking fields of fire measured with surveyor precision. Blast doors made of reinforced concrete seal passages against flamethrowers and grenades. The beaches are registered for mortar and artillery fire down to the yard. Kurabayashi has 21,000 men, and he has given them orders that break with every tradition of Japanese military doctrine. There will be no banzai charges. There will be no glorious deaths in suicidal attacks. Every man will kill 10 Americans before dying. Every position will be defended until it is destroyed. The island will not be taken in days. It will not be taken in weeks. It will become the most expensive piece of real estate in the Pacific War. The American planners expect 3 days, maybe 4. They are about to be catastrophically wrong. On the morning of February 19, 1945, the largest naval bombardment in Pacific War history tears the air apart above Iwo Jima. Battleships and cruisers firing from positions 3 miles offshore send shells the size of small cars screaming toward the island. The earth erupts in geysers of black volcanic sand and pulverized stone. The noise is beyond human comprehension, a physical force that makes the landing craft vibrate and the water itself seem to shake. This has been going on for 3 days. Before that, there were 74 consecutive days of bombing runs. The island looks like the surface of the moon, cratered and lifeless. Surely nothing could survive this. Surely the beaches will be empty of resistance. The landing craft carrying Corporal Tony Stein and the men of Company A, 1st Battalion, 28th Marines, 5th Marine Division plow through water the color of steel toward a beach-designated Green Beach 1. Stein is 23 years old, 5 feet 9 inches tall, a toolmaker from Dayton, Ohio who joined the Marine Corps paratroopers before transferring to conventional infantry. He has already survived Guadalcanal and Bougainville. He knows what combat sounds like, what it smells like, what it does to men. But he has never seen anything like this. The weapon in his hands weighs 23 pounds. It looks like something built in a garage by someone who understood machine guns the way a concert pianist understands music. Because that is exactly what it is. On Guam, months earlier, Stein and a Marine sergeant named Merritt Savage took the wing-mounted Browning and M2 machine guns from wrecked Navy fighters and modified them for infantry use. They cut down the barrel. They added a bipod and AM-1 Garand buttstock. They jury-rigged a trigger mechanism and a crude sight. The weapon fires .30-06 Springfield rounds at a rate of 1,200 rounds per minute, nearly double the cyclic rate of the standard M1919 machine gun. It weighs half as much. It also overheats catastrophically after sustained fire, drinks ammunition like water running through cupped hands, and requires specific timing and technique to fire effectively. Stein has named it the Stinger. He is bringing it to combat for the first time. The landing craft ramp drops at 0902 hours, and Stein steps into water up to his knees. The beach ahead rises in a steep terrace of black volcanic sand so fine and loose that every step forward sinks 6 inches. The sand is not sand at all in any normal sense. It is volcanic ash, ground to powder over millennia, and it provides no purchase, no stability, no cover. Mount Suribachi looms to the left, a dormant volcano rising 500 feet above the southern end of the island. Its slopes honeycombed with gun positions that overlook every square foot of beach. Somewhere in the smoke and chaos, 70,000 American Marines are coming ashore across 7,000 yards of beach. 30,000 Japanese defenders are waiting in positions they have spent 8 months preparing. For the first few minutes, there is almost no resistance. Men scramble up the terraces, struggling against sand that collapses under every footfall. Equipment is heavy. Packs weigh 60 pounds. The incline is steep enough that some Marines have to use their hands. And then, as if someone has thrown a switch, the island opens fire. The sound is indescribable. Machine gun fire from multiple positions converges on the beach in crisscrossing lanes of tracers. Mortar rounds begin falling with precision that speaks to months of preparation and pre-registered coordinates. Artillery from inland positions adds deeper, more devastating explosions. The volcanic sand that provided no cover now provides no protection either. Bullets striking the black ash throw up fountains of powder. Men disappear into the sand as if they have been erased. Others are hit and roll back down the terraces they fought so hard to climb. The entire beach is a killing field engineered with brutal mathematical precision. Stein hits the sand and looks for targets. The problem immediately reveals itself. The Japanese positions are invisible. They are firing from reinforced pillboxes with apertures 18 inches wide, buried so deep into the terrain that they appear as nothing more than shadows and gun flashes. They have overlapping fields of fire. When one position ceases firing to reload, another continues the suppression. It is a system designed by engineers and executed by men who have no intention of surrendering. This is the moment that defines everything that follows. Stein could stay low. He could find cover. He could wait for armor support or naval gunfire to suppress the positions. Instead, he stands up. He walks forward with the Stinger at his hip, and he fires a long burst directly at the nearest pillbox. The weapon roars. The cyclic rate is so high that individual shots blur into a continuous noise like tearing canvas. The muzzle flash is brilliant even in daylight. Brass casings eject in a glittering stream. The burst lasts perhaps 4 seconds. 50 rounds. The pillbox goes silent. Stein moves forward. Japanese gunners, seeing a single Marine standing upright and firing a weapon with obvious devastating power, shift their fire toward him. This is exactly what he wants. Every bullet aimed at him is a bullet not aimed at the Marines struggling to advance behind him. He identifies firing positions by their muzzle flashes and returns fire with short, precise bursts. The Stinger's rate of fire makes suppression almost instantaneous. Japanese gunners duck for cover as bullets shred the earth around their positions. In those brief moments of suppression, other Marines move forward. He destroys his second pillbox within minutes. The third takes longer because the position is reinforced concrete 3 feet thick. Stein fires burst after burst at the aperture until the defenders either die or retreat deeper into their bunker. Then he moves forward again. The tactical problem Stein faces is one of geometry and time. The beach terraces provide no cover for advancing Marines. The Japanese positions are mutually supporting, meaning attacking one exposes you to fire from others. The only solution is overwhelming firepower delivered with such speed and precision that defenders cannot return effective fire. The Stinger provides this, but it consumes ammunition at a rate that is physically unsustainable. A standard M1919 machine gun firing 100 rounds per minute can sustain fire for extended periods. The Stinger firing 1,200 rounds per minute empties a belt in seconds. Stein runs out of ammunition before the first hour ends. The beach is now absolute chaos. Landing craft are burning in the surf. Amtraks are shredded by artillery. The sand is littered with equipment and bodies and Marines trying to find cover that does not exist. Getting resupply forward is nearly impossible. The Japanese fire is so accurate that ammunition carriers are specifically targeted. Stein makes a decision that would be suicidal for anyone else. He strips off his boots and helmet to reduce weight. He slings the Stinger across his back. He takes his pistol in his hand. And he sprints 200 yards back toward the beach through machine gun fire, mortar explosions, and artillery that is walking across the terraces in a pattern designed to kill anything moving. He reaches a supply dump near the waterline. He grabs as much ammunition as he can carry. Then he runs back. The Marines who witness this cannot believe what they are seeing. A man running through fire that is cutting down Marines in full gear and body armor, wearing no boots, no helmet, carrying nothing but a pistol and ammunition belts. He makes it back. He reloads the Stinger. He stands up. He starts firing again. He does this 8 times on the first day. Each run takes approximately 3 minutes. Each run crosses ground that is under continuous observation from Japanese positions. Each run is through mortar fire that is calculated to hit men moving between the beach and forward positions. Stein runs through it the way another man might run to catch a bus. He is not reckless. He is not panicking. He is solving a tactical problem with the only solution available. His weapon requires ammunition. The ammunition is behind him. Therefore, he goes back for ammunition. Between resupply runs, he destroys pillbox after pillbox. His technique is simple but effective. He identifies a firing position by its muzzle flash or by observing where fire is coming from. He moves as close as the terrain allows, often within 50 yards. He fires a long burst directly at the aperture. Japanese defenders have 3 options. They can stay at their firing position and die. They can retreat deeper into their bunker and allow Marines to advance. Or they can try to return fire while under suppression from a weapon cycling 1,200 rounds per minute. None of these options are good. By noon, Stein has destroyed an estimated 8 fortified positions. His platoon has advanced nearly 300 yards inland from the beach, an almost unthinkable achievement on a day when some units are pinned within yards of the waterline. The Stinger's barrel is so hot that paint is blistering off the metal. The weapon is starting to malfunction from heat stress. Stein field strips it, lets it cool, and continues firing. The Japanese defenders begin to specifically target him. They have never seen a weapon like the Stinger. They have never seen a Marine stand upright and fire for extended periods while others struggle to find cover. Radio communications between Japanese positions identify him as a priority target. Snipers are redirected. Machine gun crews are ordered to focus fire. Mortar teams adjust their aim. Stein keeps moving. He understands intuitively what many infantrymen learn too late. A stationary target is a dead target. Speed and aggression create chaos in defensive positions. The human mind struggles to track and engage a target moving quickly and unpredictably. Every second a defender spends acquiring aim is a second Stein uses to change position or return fire. In the early afternoon, Stein encounters a Marine who has been hit. The man is lying in the open between 2 terraces, bleeding from a leg wound, unable to move without exposing himself to machine gun fire from a pillbox 90 yards upslope. Other Marines have tried to reach him. 2 have been wounded in the attempt. The man is going to die unless someone can suppress the pillbox long enough to evacuate him. Stein walks directly toward the pillbox, firing the Stinger from the hip. The Japanese gunner returns fire. Rounds impact the sand around Stein's feet, kicking up black powder. Stein does not stop walking. He does not take cover. He fires burst after burst until the pillbox goes silent. Then he slings the Stinger, picks up the wounded Marine, and carries him 70 yards back to a corpsman position. Then he returns to the front line and continues attacking. He does this 3 more times before the day ends. Each time, he locates a wounded Marine under fire. Each time, he suppresses the enemy position with the Stinger. Each time, he physically carries or drags the wounded man to safety. The 4th evacuation happens under mortar fire so heavy that corpsmen refuse to move from their covered positions. Stein carries the Marine anyway. Mortar rounds detonate close enough to throw sand over both men. Neither is hit. By late afternoon, Stein has fired approximately 1,200 rounds. He has personally destroyed an estimated 20 fortified positions. He has made 8 resupply runs under fire. He has evacuated multiple wounded Marines. His platoon has advanced nearly 700 yards inland, creating a salient that allows follow-on units to exploit. The Stinger's barrel is warped from heat. The weapon is barely functional. Stein is covered in volcanic ash, sweat, and other men's blood. He has been shot at more times than can be counted. He has not been hit. The Medal of Honor citation that will be written later uses careful language and specific numbers. It mentions 20 pillboxes destroyed. It mentions resupply runs. It mentions wounded evacuated. What it cannot convey is the cumulative effect of watching one man do this for an entire day. The Marines around Stein are exhausted, terrified, and traumatized by violence that exceeds anything they experienced in previous campaigns. They see Stein stand up when every instinct screams to stay down. They see him run toward danger when every survival mechanism demands retreat. They see him operate with a calmness that borders on the supernatural. This is not courage in the abstract sense. This is not a moment of heroism compressed into seconds. This is sustained, calculated aggression maintained across hours, through exhaustion and fear and the progressive understanding that the odds of survival decrease with every action. Stein knows this. The Marines around him know this. He continues anyway. When darkness falls on February 19, 1945, the first day of the Battle of Iwo Jima, the American forces have suffered over 2,500 casualties. They hold beachhead positions that are in some places less than 1,000 yards deep. Mount Suribachi remains unconquered, its gun positions still dominating the southern beaches. The battle that was supposed to take 3 days will take 36. It will cost nearly 7,000 American lives. But on Green Beach, in the sector where Tony Stein fought, the lines have moved inland far enough to give follow-on forces room to operate. Wounded men are alive who would have bled out in the open without suppressing fire. Pillboxes are destroyed that would have taken hours and casualties to reduce through conventional assault. One man with an improvised weapon has altered the mathematics of an entire beach sector. But the cost of this achievement is not yet fully paid. Stein continues fighting for the next 10 days. The Stinger finally fails completely from accumulated heat damage and mechanical stress. He switches to a standard M1 Garand rifle and continues leading assaults on Japanese positions. On February 24th, he is wounded by Japanese fire. He refuses evacuation. On February 26th, he is wounded again more seriously. This time he is evacuated to a hospital ship offshore. He stays on the ship for less than 12 hours. On February 27th, Stein leaves the hospital ship without authorization and returns to his unit. The official records note this as absent without leave for the purpose of returning to combat. In any other context, this would be a court-martial offense. In the chaos of Iwo Jima, it is barely noticed. Stein rejoins Company A and continues fighting. The Battle of Iwo Jima has entered its grinding second phase. The dramatic beach assaults have given way to a slower, more methodical advance measured in yards per day. Every cave must be cleared. Every pillbox must be destroyed. The Japanese defenders fight with precision and discipline that makes every position a separate battle. Flamethrowers and demolition charges are used constantly. Artillery support and air strikes pummel positions before infantry assault. The casualties mount steadily. On March 1, 1945, Company A is conducting a reconnaissance mission near a position designated Hill Peter. The fighting here is different from the beach. The terrain is broken volcanic rock, providing countless positions for snipers and machine gun nests. Visibility is limited. Approaches are covered by fire. Every movement is dangerous. Stein is moving with a small reconnaissance element when Japanese snipers open fire. The specifics of what happens next are lost in the chaos of combat and conflicting reports. What is known is this: Tony Stein is hit by sniper fire. The wound is fatal. He dies on March 1, 1945, 11 days after landing on Iwo Jima. He is 23 years old. His body is recovered and buried in the 5th Marine Division Cemetery on Iwo Jima. Later, he will be reinterred in a private cemetery in Dayton, Ohio. His Medal of Honor recommendation moves through military channels. In December 1946, 21 months after his death, President Harry Truman presents the Medal of Honor to Stein's widow. The citation lists his actions on February 19 in precise detail. 20 pillboxes destroyed, 8 resupply runs, multiple wounded evacuated. It is one of 27 Medals of Honor awarded for actions on Iwo Jima, an unprecedented number that speaks to the intensity and cost of the battle. The Stinger weapon that Stein carried into combat disappears into history. Military records suggest that the original improvised machine guns were either destroyed in combat, lost during the post-war demobilization, or disposed of as unauthorized modifications to military property. No confirmed examples survive in museums. Photographs of the weapon are rare and low quality. Technical specifications are reconstructed from witness testimony and partial documentation. The weapon existed for perhaps 6 months. It was carried into combat by a handful of Marines. Then it vanished. But the idea survived. The concept that Stein and Sergeant Savage created, a lightweight, high-rate-of-fire automatic weapon that could be carried and operated by a single infantryman, influenced post-war thinking about squad automatic weapons. The M60 machine gun adopted in the 1950s incorporated lessons about weight and mobility. The squad automatic weapon programs of later decades explicitly referenced the need for organic firepower at the squad level. The Stinger was crude, unreliable, and unsustainable in its original form. But it was right about something fundamental. It gave one man the firepower of a crew-served weapon. It made mobility compatible with sustained fire. It worked. The Battle of Iwo Jima ended on March 26, 1945, after 36 days of combat. American casualties exceeded 26,000, including nearly 7,000 killed. Japanese casualties were over 20,000, with only a few hundred taken prisoner. The island's airfields were operational within weeks. B-29 bombers began using Iwo Jima as an emergency landing strip. Over the remaining months of the war, more than 2,400 B-29s made emergency landings on the island, saving an estimated 27,000 aircrew lives. The mathematics that drove the decision to take Iwo Jima proved correct, though the cost was higher than anyone anticipated. Tony Stein's story became one small piece of a massive narrative. 27 Medals of Honor. Thousands of individual acts of courage. A battle that became synonymous with Marine Corps determination and sacrifice. The photograph of Marines raising the flag on Mount Suribachi became the most famous image of World War II. Stein is not in that photograph. He is already dead by the time it is taken. His moment happened on the beach in the first hours, when the outcome was most uncertain. What is remembered about Iwo Jima tends toward iconic images and broad statistics. What is forgotten are the individual decisions made in moments of chaos. Stein standing up when others stayed down. Stein running toward the beach for ammunition when every instinct screamed to stay in cover. Stein carrying wounded men through mortar fire because no one else was positioned to do it. These decisions were not made once in a moment of inspiration. They were made continuously, repeatedly, across hours and days. There is a question that historians and veterans wrestle with when examining acts of extreme valor. Is courage an inherent trait, or is it a skill that can be learned and practiced? Stein's background offers partial answers. He was a toolmaker, trained in precision and problem-solving. He built the Stinger because he understood mechanical systems and saw a tactical problem that required a specific solution. His combat actions followed similar logic. Identify the problem, create a solution, execute the solution regardless of risk. This is not mindless bravery. This is engineering applied to violence. But there is something else at work, something harder to quantify. Stein returned from the hospital ship without authorization. He had been wounded twice. He had survived the worst day of the battle. He could have stayed on the ship. He could have accepted evacuation to a rear-area hospital. No one would have questioned this decision. Instead, he went back. This suggests something beyond tactical problem-solving. This suggests a sense of responsibility to the men around him that overrode personal survival instinct. The Marines who survived Iwo Jima and spoke about Stein in later years returned to similar themes. He was calm. He did not seem afraid. He made impossible actions look routine. One veteran described watching Stein make a resupply run as like watching someone walk to the store, except the store was trying to kill him. Another remembered Stein firing the Stinger from a standing position while everyone else was prone, like he was at a shooting range instead of a battlefield. This calmness under fire is documented in other Medal of Honor recipients but remains difficult to explain. It is not lack of fear. Stein was a veteran of previous campaigns. He knew what bullets did to human bodies. He knew the odds. The calmness came from somewhere else, some combination of focus and training and perhaps a decision made before the battle ever started about what kind of Marine he was going to be. The improvised nature of the Stinger adds another dimension to the story. Modern militaries spend billions developing and testing weapons. The process takes years and involves extensive engineering analysis. Stein and Savage built the Stinger in a workshop with hand tools, battlefield experience, and intuition about what would work. The weapon was crude. It was unreliable. It was also exactly what was needed on February 19, 1945. This suggests something about the value of innovation at the operator level, about trusting soldiers and Marines to solve problems in unconventional ways. Military bureaucracies tend toward standardization for good reasons. Logistics require compatible parts. Training requires consistent platforms. Safety requires testing and validation. But wars are not won by bureaucracies. They are won by individuals making split-second decisions in environments that no amount of planning can fully anticipate. Stein's Stinger would never have been approved through official channels. It was too dangerous, too unreliable, too dependent on the skill of its operator. It also saved lives and broke defensive positions that conventional weapons struggled to suppress. This tension between standardization and innovation remains relevant in modern military thinking. Every major conflict produces improvisations and field modifications. Vehicles are up-armored with scrap metal. Weapons are customized. Tactics are invented in response to specific threats. The most effective militaries find ways to incorporate these innovations rather than suppress them. Stein's story is an early example of this dynamic. But ultimately, the Stinger is not the story. The weapon mattered because of the man carrying it. A different Marine with the same weapon might have used it conventionally, might have stayed in cover and fired from supported positions. Stein used it as a tool for aggressive movement and relentless attack. The weapon enabled his approach, but the approach came from him. There is a final detail worth noting. Stein died on a reconnaissance mission, not during a major assault. Not in a dramatic last stand. He died doing routine infantry work, the kind of mission that happens every day in combat zones, the kind that does not generate headlines. This is perhaps the most telling detail of all. Stein did not save his courage for dramatic moments. He operated at the same intensity whether the mission was a beach assault or a reconnaissance patrol. This consistency is rarer than momentary heroism. The Marines who served with Stein and survived the war carried his story forward. They told it at reunions and in memoirs. They made sure his name was remembered. But memories fade. Reunions become smaller as veterans age and die. 70 years after Iwo Jima, there are almost no living veterans of the battle. The stories survive in official citations, in history books, in documentary footage that shows the beach and the mountain and the flag raising. Tony Stein appears in some of these accounts. He is absent from others. History is selective about who it remembers. This raises uncomfortable questions about memory and sacrifice. 27 Marines received the Medal of Honor for actions on Iwo Jima. 27 extraordinary stories of courage. How many other stories were equally extraordinary but went unrecognized? How many acts of valor happened in moments when no officers were present to witness and document them? The Medal of Honor is not awarded for being brave. It is awarded for being brave in ways that are observed, documented, and verified. This is necessary for the integrity of the award. But it also means that the medal represents a fraction of the actual courage displayed in combat. Stein was fortunate in this regard. His actions were witnessed by multiple Marines. Officers saw what he did. The documentation was thorough. His Medal of Honor is deserved, but it also represents luck in addition to valor. Luck that he was seen. Luck that witnesses survived. Luck that the paperwork made it through military bureaucracy. The men who were not as lucky are also heroes. They died on the same black sand, faced the same fire, made the same impossible decisions. They are buried in the same cemeteries or commemorated on the same memorials. Their families received the same telegrams. The difference between remembered and forgotten often comes down to chance. This is not to diminish Stein's achievement. What he did on February 19, 1945 was extraordinary by any measure. But it is important to remember that extraordinary actions were commonplace on Iwo Jima. The island demanded them. Men rose to meet that demand or they died. Some were recognized. Others were not. All deserve to be remembered. The story of Tony Stein and the Stinger is ultimately about improvisation, sacrifice, and the brutal mathematics of war. It is about a man who saw a tactical problem and built a solution with his own hands. It is about courage sustained across hours and days rather than compressed into moments. It is about decisions made in chaos that altered outcomes for dozens of other men. It is about innovation at the edge of what is possible, both in mechanical design and human endurance. And it is about the cost. Stein died at 23. He had a wife, parents, a life waiting for him in Dayton, Ohio. He volunteered for the Marines. He survived 2 campaigns. He built a weapon that should not have worked but did. He used it in ways that should have killed him but didn't, until finally the odds caught up on a routine patrol 11 days after his Medal of Honor action. This is the arithmetic of war. Courage increases the probability of success. Skill increases the probability of survival. But probability is not certainty. Eventually, the odds collect. Stein survived longer than statistics suggested he should. Then he didn't. The black sand of Iwo Jima has been peaceful for 80 years. The pillboxes are empty. The caves are sealed. The airfields are maintained but rarely used. Japanese and American veterans have held joint memorial services on the island. The enemy who fought with such ferocity and determination in 1945 became allies in the post-war world. The strategic importance of the island evaporated with Japan's surrender. The mathematics that made Iwo Jima necessary became irrelevant. What remains is memory, imperfect, selective, fading with each passing year. Tony Stein is remembered in official histories. His name is on memorials. His Medal of Honor citation is preserved in archives. But the sound of the Stinger firing is forgotten. The exact feeling of volcanic ash under bare feet is forgotten. The specific fear and determination that drove him to make 8 resupply runs under fire is inaccessible to anyone who was not there. This is the nature of historical memory. We preserve what we can document. We honor what we can verify. We tell the stories that survived the chaos. But we acknowledge that behind every documented act of valor are countless others that vanished into the fog of war. Tony Stein's story survived. It is worth telling. But it is also worth remembering that it represents one thread in a tapestry of sacrifice too large and complex to ever be fully captured. The young toolmaker from Dayton built a weapon in a workshop on Guam. He carried it across a black sand beach. He used it to break defensive positions that were supposed to be impregnable. He ran through fire 8 times to keep it fed with ammunition. He carried wounded men through mortar explosions. He returned from a hospital ship to keep fighting. He died on a reconnaissance patrol. He was awarded the Medal of Honor. His weapon disappeared. His story remained. That is what we remember. That is what we tell. That is what we owe to the men who stood on that beach and decided that forward was the only acceptable direction, regardless of cost. If the story made you think about innovation and courage in ways you haven't before, if you found yourself holding your breath during those resupply runs, if you understand now why 80,000 men fought for 36 days over 8 square miles of volcanic rock, then take a moment to subscribe to this channel. Hit the like button so others can find this story. And leave a comment answering this question. Was Tony Stein's improvised weapon more important than his willingness to use it the way he did? Or are they inseparable? Think about it. Because the answer tells us something about whether wars are won by technology or by the men carrying it into impossible situations. And that question matters just as much today as it did on February 19, 1945.